Yeah, I don't get a podium. Good afternoon. We are gathered here today to get through this thing called ad blocking, and we're going to start with a show of hands. How many of you think that ad blockers do more harm than good? All right, you might have the easier go of it. How many of you think they are, in fact, a force for good? Okay, a little bit of a...
I'm liking these numbers so far.
Okay,
Yeah.
fairly evenly balanced. So the way it's going to work, they're both going to give a statement of up to 5 minutes, and then they'll have the chance to quiz each other. I will be coming through with questions about things they address or do not address. I will be expressing my opinion by periodically shouting wrong, and if necessary, I will point to the emoji on my socks to indicate particular reactions I have. So I guess we'll let you take the first opening statement since you walked on stage first.
All right, that sounds good.
All right, the microphone is yours.
All right, thank you. Before I get started, how many people actually have an ad blocker installed? Raise your hand, please. All right, that's pretty good. All right, so for today's debate, my job is to convince you that AdBlock actually does more good than harm. For those of many of you that already have an ad blocker installed, hopefully the value it provides is already clear. For those of you who don't, I hope to convince you why you should have one installed. But perhaps the most counterintuitive point I'd like to make is that widespread adoption of ad blocking is actually good for publishers and advertisers as well. Today, online ads are broken. There are ads that follow you everywhere online. There are ads that play before, during, and after video clips, ads that automatically play audio when you arrive on a site, ads that track you and follow you across the web. These ads are incessant, and the overall experience can range from simply annoying in the best case to insidious in the worst case. Widespread adoption of ad blocking is a direct result of this phenomenon. Over the last 10 years, hundreds of millions of people have installed ad blockers. This allows them to send a signal to publishers and advertisers that they don't like the way in which the current advertising ecosystem operates. But let's be clear about one thing. The people that use ad blocking software are not opposed to all forms of advertising. We understand clearly that publishers can and should use advertising to pay for the high quality content that they produce. We just want to be able to provide people with a mechanism to provide a curb against some of the more rampant forms of advertising. In short, the people that use ad blocking see a system that doesn't keep their interests in mind, and we think that ad blocking can help lead to better outcomes for everybody involved. Here's how. First and foremost, AdBlock will ultimately help do away with some of the more egregious ad formats. Think about the last time you saw a pop-up ad. I'm guessing on a popular site you haven't seen one in many years, and that's because that format was truly objectionable and they've disappeared. Or to be more precise, that format hasn't disappeared, it's been eradicated. Google, Mozilla, Microsoft, each of them ultimately built technology into their browser that obviates the need or doesn't even allow pop-up ads to load. These days, we're seeing a similar dynamic play out. The ads that have replaced pop-ups are just as egregious in some instances, and now it's being reported that yet again, Google is considering building basic ad blocking functionality into its browser. We believe that's a good move for everybody involved. When you think about it, Google, a company that makes $20 billion a quarter from advertising, the fact that they're building an ad blocker into the world's most popular browser is a pretty powerful signal. The other reason that we think that AdBlock does more good than harm is it allows the overall experience of reading content on the web to be less objectionable. It gives people a way to filter out some of the worst offending ads while also providing a mechanism for people to support the content and the creators that they like. Finally, AdBlock gives people a voice, a way to communicate back to publishers and to advertisers that they have a stake in this ecosystem as well, and that it's not okay to bombard them with ads incessantly. In closing, we think widespread adoption of ad blocking software is not only good for users, even if it hurts publishers and advertisers in the short term, by forcing them to find less objectionable ad formats in the long term, that will be better for everybody involved. Thank you.
All right, Steve,
Up
your
to me.
turn.
So I want to start out with a little quiz too. How many of you primarily get your news online? okay? And how many of you who just raised your hand pay a subscription or some kind of, not even, almost half, for all that news? So what I'm here to convince you is the web, we're about 2/3 of the way into a transformation from print to digital, and the next step is, over the next 10 years, we're going to see that transfer over from traditional TV video to online video. So while the economics are working out with print, it's now we're just starting to figure out how that works out with video. And this kind of goes to what he was saying about pre-roll ads and so forth there. I admit there's a lot of crap out there. I have a panic attack when I click onto a CNN article and a video starts playing and I'm in the middle of the office and noise is going everywhere, or when there's an interstitial, like it makes me not want to read that site. But at the same time, publishers are doing a better job at policing themselves, and they're working directly with these advertisers and with these groups to make better ad formats. I'll give you a case in point what we're doing at Business Insider. You will not see an autoplay ad when you click into a written or a photo story on Business Insider. It just doesn't happen. There's no interstitial. And what we've learned is it's experimentation. Readers vote with their views. Readers are voting with what works and what doesn't work. Gawker has experimented with this. They used to make you watch a video before you can even read a written article. They since killed that because it just wasn't working. And as this transition plays out, and to keep in mind, there is a lot of work to be done, but as this transition happens, I think the people who do it right are going to win. In the meantime, we have ad blockers. And while it hasn't hit that threshold quite yet, it is potentially damaging to keep producing the content for the stuff you love to watch. So when you're not paying for it, when you're not, most of you did not raise your hand when I asked if you're paying for your content online. Maybe you have 1 or 2 subscriptions, but the bulk of the content you're reading for free, you're consuming it for free. And there is a real cost to that. And content producers like myself, we have to eat, and without ads, we can't eat. And it's, so again, this is a transition that's happening. And I think we're doing a better job at self-policing without the potential risk of taking away the funding to really spur that innovation. And then I'll just say, if ad blocking does become mainstream and more widespread, it puts in danger of this becoming an even bigger duopoly in the digital advertising space. So we have Facebook and Google just accelerating growth in their dominant market share of digital ad spend. And having 2 platforms control most of the content you see online, that's dangerous for just about any reason you can think of. And that is a future I definitely want to avoid. And if more people adopt these ad blockers and take money away from the publishers trying to diversify that ecosystem, that's bad for the web as a whole. That's it.
Okay, so let's talk about this whole possible ad blocking scheme that would be added to Chrome. It's supposed to be done as part of an initiative called the Coalition for Better Ads, which from a certain extent sounds like, the name the tobacco industry would come up for their front group in DC. But apparently they mean well. They want to make ads better. Let's talk about ad formats that you're fine with.
So I think AdBlock participates in a program called Acceptable Ads, which is very similar to what the Coalition of Better Ads is trying to accomplish. From our perspective, it's pretty straightforward. It's ads that aren't intrusive, ads that don't take away from reading what you're trying to read. They don't blink, they don't flash, they don't go over or under the content you're trying to read. And to the extent that the Coalition for Better Ads is trying to accomplish the same thing, I think we're fully supportive of it. Look, I was a journalist for 5 years myself. I spent my life, getting paid a reporter's salary, which is, not as much as I would have liked it to be.
Believe me, people go into this job for the money.
Certainly, I understand the impact that all of this has on the ecosystem. And from our perspective, we're fans of anything that ultimately leads to a widespread cleanup of some of the worst practices out there.
And I know I'm not supposed to agree with them, but I do. But my only criticism is they are moving very slowly with this initiative. And having this group kind of mandate what is acceptable and working with ad blockers on what is acceptable, that's a potentially slippery slope. And like I said, it is kind of working out on its own in the marketplace, and the smart publishers, the bigger publishers, are really figuring it out on their own, and they are being informed by the readership they see. And so, I think they just came out with a report saying, everything you expect. We don't like autoplay ads. We don't like flashes and pop-ups. It's like, did you really need 6 months to figure that out? We know that for a fact. I think what's more important is that the more established digital companies, the more established publishers are doing a much better job at figuring out, and the smaller guys who don't figure it out, they're going to be the first ones to croak. When you come to, let's talk about Chrome. Chrome is not putting an ad blocker in Chrome. What they're doing is they're thinking about adopting these standards. That's not an ad blocker. That's not blocking all ads. That's blocking the ads that don't meet these certain standards. At the same time, that's scary to me as a publisher, because that gives Google so much more control to platformize the web and turn the web into a more closed ecosystem, which is just terrible for free speech, terrible for independent voices, and terrible for just content in general and the stuff that you like to read and watch.
And I should note one possible feature of this Chrome, upgrade, whatever you want to call it, is the Wall Street Journal's original report said they were considering having Google block all the ads on a site if the site contained one of the now banned formats, which can be a problem once you realize how many ads are served up programmatically from some ad network, which is where you see like 90% of the schlock out there.
Right, and I mean, to be clear, that is where we take, that's most of our advertising is, ours being Business Insiders, comes from programmatic. It's been a huge success for us. And we've done a lot of work to make sure that's not intrusive, done a lot of work to make sure it isn't annoying. For example, when you go to a Business Insider page, the content loads first. So the load time appears to the user that you're going to see the photos and the story you want to see, and then the ads are loading in the background. Our tech team has done just like an amazing job at making the experience as smooth as possible for you, so you're not annoyed by those ads, by those programmatic ads.
I should also note, I write for 2 sites that do have video that plays automatically with the sound on. I won't tell you which ones they are. You can probably figure it out. We should also, I guess, talk a little bit about other business models. It's not just ads. A site could go with affiliate links to Amazon, but then you have other issues that, hey, what if you start writing about a lot of stuff that people might want to buy on Amazon? Do you worry a little bit too much about sites taking that easy way out? Like instead of having nice ads, they'll just make every other word a link back to your...
I think that concern's a little overblown, personally. I think if you look at sites like the Wirecutter or Sweet Home, which got acquired by the New York Times, or if you look at some of the work that BuzzFeed is doing around affiliate-related business models, I think as long as your model is made clear to people up front, I don't find anything objectionable about it. Same with some of the more above-board native ads. Like, as long as it's clearly labeled as sponsored content, I think it's
native
totally...
content thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally acceptable to have, and people should be experimenting with different models. I think if history has shown us anything, it's that, because of the lack of constraints on the amount of supply for ads online, people have just shown more and more ads to people, and we believe that adoption of ad blocking is just a symptom of that problem. I know that we oftentimes it gets articulated that we are the cause of the problem, and without a doubt, we are causing issues for publishers. But we think that people are adopting this software because they've gotten to a point where the experience that they have online is just so objectionable that they're trying to find some way to fight back. So if people can find other alternative business models, we're fully supportive of that. Like, I think subscriptions are the other one that gets bandied about a lot. Obviously, that doesn't work in a lot of markets, but certainly that's another viable alternative.
But it's not, I think what he's missing is it's not a full business model, these affiliate links. It's diversifying the revenue stream. So, BuzzFeed is doing, most of their advertising, most of their revenue comes from sponsored content. But now they need to grow and they need to diversify, so that's why they're experimenting with these Amazon affiliate links or whatever affiliate links. We do it too. We have a whole separate editorial division, just like BuzzFeed, just like Gawker does, where we have people picking out good products, recommending good products, testing products, and saying, hey, this, if you're looking for the best tablet or whatever, this is what you should buy. So it's not about finding an alternative to ads or an alternative to this our traditional revenue stream. It's about diversifying.
Now, you made a point earlier about what's called retargeting. That's where you go to a site, you express some interest in buying some category of thing, and you never stop seeing ads for that, which My favorite example of that, I had to replace a toilet seat, if you must know, and then I had, every page I went to is full of Amazon ads for toilet seats. That caused me to turn off the Amazon ad preference setting that causes the site to spam you with stuff. But that's an example of an ad that it's not the problem that it's blinking or popping up or under, it's that the site thinks it can get you to keep going down the charmingly named purchase funnel. So your solution isn't really going to fix that, though, is it?
I think there's ways that you can tune your ad blocker to do away with some of those different forms of tracking. And to be honest with you, that's one of the big drivers of adoption of ad blocking software. I think if you think about it from the perspective of people that maybe aren't as savvy online, or that maybe spend a little bit less time trying to figure out what exactly is going on, regardless of whether they know what's going on or not, when you see a pair of shoes that you search for on Amazon show up on some other page that you're reading, there's a level that you've crossed that's just inherently sort of creepy. And I think that value exchange is not clearly communicated to people. So I think one of the issues that we've seen is that because publishing is a relatively difficult business and it's hard to make money, some people have abdicated control over their ad stack to third parties. And some of these ad tech providers are actually the ones that cause some of the issues in terms of mining people for data. I mean, even the words that they use, like mining people for data, targeting them, like it's not the way to talk about people. And I think the way that actual people have responded to some of this targeting
Technically,
is by
they're just eyeballs, actually, not people.
Yeah, right. Right, that's even more dehumanizing.
So I think I agree. There is a certain creep level when, you know, I look at something and a Casper mattress follows me all over the internet, even though I already bought one. And I think that talks to the next level that these ad tech companies really have to figure out. And that's how do we not over show you the same ad over and over and over again, and also making sure, like, okay, so you did buy that product or you did buy a similar product, let's stop showing you that ad. That's another big problem. You've probably experienced this too, I bought those shoes or I bought that thing and it's still following me around. So that's where a lot of the work does have to be done, and that is on the ad networks. And I don't think blocking them is going to convince them that it's not working. It's going to be other user behavior, whether it does lead to purchases and things like that. And I have a feeling the spammy ones are going to end up falling under.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, like, some of what you see in some of the recent FCC regulations, where they're actually making it so that ISPs and other companies don't have to disclose to you when they're sharing your data. I mean,
I think we can all agree that's terrible.
Yes.
Like, what I was
everyone
going
on
to
the
say
stage
is that
hates
not all
that.
tracking is bad
Right.
inherently. I think what has to happen is that if there's a value exchange, if the user understands the value that they're getting, I don't even like that word, user. If the person who's using this product actually understands what's happening and how their data is being used, it's not that it's inherently bad or good, it's that it's not clearly disclosed.
But let's talk about the value. The product that you're getting when you look at any piece of online content is that content. So that's how you're paying for it. I get value out of it. I learn stuff when I click onto a Yahoo Finance page or a Business Insider page or any kind of great story or video or whatever I want to read. So you want to talk about, like, with the value you're getting out of it, you're getting the news and information and entertainment that you want.
So
Sure.
you were saying before that, you know, the ad industry is learning, it's responding.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
of course,
publishers are learning and responding.
this was after years and years of people saying, you know, you were saying you were at some conference and somebody turned out the light on you.
Not on me, on somebody else who
Okay.
represented another ad blocking software company.
So is part of the problem that the ad industry is having trouble making a pitch for itself as an ethical actor in this case?
That's a good question. I really think it's up to the publishers more than the ad industry itself to tell the ad industry this is the better practices. And I think while this consortium is good in theory, I think they're just moving way too slow on that.
Yeah, I have to note, one thing I really learned a lot about ads was only when I started doing a blog at WordPress.com and realizing I had so little control over what came in, even though Word ads, their system is supposed to be better, and I've had to complain a couple of times saying, like, this is really schlock. Could you not put this crap on my own site? And they said that they'd tell that particular ad network to knock it off. And so far it's been classier stuff. But yeah, I'm sure you all have been surprised as well by some
we
of the
see-
stuff
yeah.
that gets dredged up by one
Yeah,
ad
and
network or
occasionally
another.
that does happen. You'll see, I'll be reading, I mean, any site, CNN even, or New York Times, and it's like, oh my God, how did that get there? Like, why? And I really think it's a longer game. We're still in a very long transformation process for how we consume media. Like I said, we're about 2/3 of the way into going from print to digital, and then we're just in like the very, very beginnings of video to digital. And it's going to take a while. We're already seeing those ad dollars shift over, and as more and more shift over, I mean, look what happened to YouTube a couple months ago with people pulling out after it was discovered ads going against extremist videos. These big platforms are finally learning, wow, you know, we distribute media on such a vast scale. There's a responsibility that comes with distributing that media, and they're starting to learn how to appropriately serve that editor role while still pumping out content like crazy.
So let's try to, if we can agree on one positive step the ad industry could do together as three of us. Whatever the name is for that ad that appears in front of the copy, which corner should the close button always be at? Top right, top left, bottom right? Because no one can...
Doesn't it depend if you're left or right-handed?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
Wouldn't it?
'cause- and sometimes it'll
If your
be at
mouse
the
is on your
very
left
top
or-
right of
yeah.
the page. You know,
Oh,
if we could
man.
just as people of goodwill come together and decide on that.
I'm a righty, so I'm gonna say
Okay,
top right.
so
Just pick a corner and stick with
okay,
it.
the top. We decided top right corner. We're going to make this case to New York and LA and San Francisco, and we'll see if we can do that. A couple of things we wanted to get into. There's also the issue of ads that are, you know, not privacy invading and not noisy or animated, but are pushing fraud. The whole one weird tip for a flat belly thing. Is that something that your software has been able to block?
Look, ultimately, we don't think it's incumbent upon us to decide. In fact, probably the opposite. It's not really for us to decide what is good and what's bad. And I think, like most things, there's a sort of continuum upon which these things exist. I know that Outbrain and Taboola get a lot of grief for some of the stuff that they've done, but I think a lot of times it's up to the publisher to determine how they want to configure it. Like if you go on some sites, there's Outbrain widgets that actually provide access to really good content. But
Really?
Yeah,
I
go,
haven't seen it.
go to Recode. They actually do it
Oh,
well.
okay.
I think I think the trade-off is that there's lower RPMs associated with those type. There's actually a tension between relevancy and monetization. So a lot of these sites who use some of these sponsored content widgets, which, put on 50 pounds of muscle mass in 4 days or whatever,
They
they've
always have the
opted to.
worst artwork too with those.
It's bad. I mean, they've opted in many cases to optimize those ad units to increase the amount of money that they will make. So it's not that the ad unit itself is inherently bad, it's that it's how it's implemented. At least that's our opinion.
And so I'm going to push back on what you said a little bit, and that's, you just said it's not your job to determine what is, but you have determined. You've determined all ads are bad. We're just going to blanket wipe them all until this gets figured out and force the industry to move faster than it can and then it can sustain itself. And I think that's overall more damaging by making this blanket judgment that most or if not all ads are bad, so we're just going to get rid of them all and hope it works out, and if some people die on the way, fine. I don't think that's the right way to go.
Yeah, I mean, look,
If some people die, that's pretty strong words
Yeah.
there.
I mean, both for us and just in general in life, if you're going to identify a problem, it is helpful to have a potential solution. So we have a solution, again, what's called acceptable ads. We don't run that program, but we work with the company that does. That allows ads like Google search ads and other ads that aren't objectionable, and by objectionable I mean that don't blank this, and this whole program is sort of overseen by a board of people that are both from advertisers as well as the AdBlock companies themselves.
What website do we find them at?
It's acceptableads.org, I believe, is the site.
.org,
Very,
okay.
very original. But yeah, it's a solution. Is it the perfect solution? Maybe not, but I think it's a solution, and it does allow people a way to actually generate income from people that have ad blockers installed. So it's a start.
So you were saying earlier that some people just don't want any ads. You were saying that no, everyone accepts their ads. I have to say I do occasionally say to people who they always show up in my comments that everything should be ad free, which like I want a pony too. do you have some people using your product who are in that state of mind and just want to conjure up free content
I mean,
with no visible means of support?
we have more than 60 million people that use our product. I'm sure we have somebody who represents each and every diverse point of view. I think the people that are anti-ad zealots and think that no ads should be shown on any site ever represent a very, very small minority. I think it's a useful sort of rhetorical device to sort of assume that everybody that has an ad blocker installed is actually that sort of anti-ad zealot. I don't believe it to be true. The data that we have from our users suggests it isn't true. And the fact that people do look for ways to either subscribe or go through things like Patreon or use acceptable ads suggests that people are open and understand, again, to my earlier point, that this content is not free to produce, and there should be ways to help people support it.
And that's true. I just don't think blocking all ads is the answer for that. So we ran an experiment where, and a lot of websites are doing this, if you run an ad blocker and our site picks it up, you get a little pop-up saying, turn off your ad blocker or pay $1 per month to read Business Insider. And we found most people turned off their ad blocker. And so it's clear there is that inherent value you're getting back. Now we have gotten some nasty emails, how dare you tell me I can't use this? And it's that very small but vocal minority. But most people realize, I really like reading this stuff.
About how much of your traffic is coming in with an ad blocker enabled?
I don't know that set, so I don't want to speak for that. But
Okay, so we've had a good back and forth. It's about time to do another show of hands to see whether this gentleman or this gentleman has been more persuasive.
help me eat.
Or you're all thinking about lunch now. So first of all, a show of hands, who now believes that ad blockers do more harm than good? Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right. And who has been convinced by this debate that they are in fact a positive force on the web?
It's about 50-50. So we solved nothing.
Right. Well, this is like every other conversation.
This is like every internet debate ever.
Right, exactly. Well, I guess I will say in conclusion that I do hope we have better ads. I hope that they continue to make media companies profitable so they will pay me money, which I can spend on our adorable 6-year-old. And when there are annoying ads, those of us in the media, we're annoyed by them too. We care. And in conclusion, please keep reading, especially his site.
And your site.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.